We're going to start with why the advice business. So I personally believe that this is the best business model. But before I tell you why, I want to show you the other types of businesses you could get involved in. So what we're going to cover is the 4 core business models, the pros and cons, the educational trends, the best business model. Spoiler alert, I believe it's the one that you are looking at right now. So here are the 4 core business models. The first one is selling physical products. The second one is selling software. The third is selling a service. And the fourth is selling information. Now, each of these business models falls into one of 2 categories. They are either linear or they are leveraged. And I'm going to talk about each of those. So selling physical products. It does have a few pros. It's got tangible value that customers can appreciate physically. There's something for people to hold something in their hand or see exactly what they're getting as a physical product. It does have potential for what we call mass market penetration and retail distribution, and that is just a fancy way of saying that lots of people can get their hands on it and they can get their hands on it easily. But there are definitely cons. Inventory management, storage, that retail distribution that we talked about in the pros is actually very, very costly to make happen. High startup costs due to production and logistics. You've got shipping, you've got trucking, you've got all kinds of different things that can affect the cost of your products and can also mean that you got to have a lot of money up front to start businesses like this. Now, because there's so much cost involved with physical products, the profit margins tend to be low. Selling software is another option, and that also has pros. High scalability, minimal additional costs after initial development. Potential for recurring revenue through subscriptions or licensing. But it's got some cons. It requires continuous updates and support. Now, an interesting aspect of the updates and support is the fact that once you have a software that becomes really, really successful, and say you have a developer who creates that software for you, when they get a hint of how much money you're making by selling their software because they did the work once and now you're selling the software, once they get a hint of that, the next time you go to update that, if they're aware of that, your costs to update that software and continue to make it usable and competitive in the marketplace, they're going to skyrocket. So if you become successful, just know that anybody who's responsible for developing your software is going to see that and they're going to win a bigger piece of the pie. There is high initial development cost and time. It takes time. It could take 6 months to do an app. It could take a year to build a piece of software. And if you don't have that particular skill, you're going to have to pay somebody to do it, and that is going to cost you a lot of money. And there's market saturation in popular niches, and it can be really high, and it can make it difficult for you to compete. The first 2 that we've talked about, a physical product or service, is a one-to-many business because you do it once, you create it once, and you sell it over and over and over again. But in another aspect, it is one-to-one because it is a single purchase. So that's also a one-to-one business because you have to sell 1 unit to make $1. You have to sell another unit to make another $1. The second one is software, and that is more of a one-to-many because you create it once and sell it many times. Selling a service is truly a one-to-one business model. So that limits you in many ways. Now, it does have some pros. It's got a flexible entry point with lower initial investment than product-based models. In other words, for example, say you're a landscaper. Really all you need is a mower and maybe a weed eater, and you're in business, right? And you can do this yourself. So it's a lot better than trying to buy a bunch of inventory or create a bunch of products and store them. It's got high potential for personalization. You can build long-term customer relationships using the landscaping model. Once again, you get to know your customers. You get to know how they want their lawn. You can build these long-term customer relationships. And in that case, it can be an ongoing business relationship where you get recurring revenue. Now, the cons, it's hard to scale because time and manpower limit the amount of business you can take on and the amount of profit that you can make. Now let's move from like a landscaping type situation to say it was a social media marketing agency. You can only take on so many clients, so you can only make so much money. And there's so many hours in the day, so you can only serve so many clients. And so it doesn't allow you to scale. Now your income is awfully directly tied to the hours worked, and this may lead to burnout. What a lot of people who sell a service like landscaping or social media marketing or content creation growth services, what they realize is that they don't have a business, they're self-employed, which means if they don't show up and do business every single day, they don't get paid, and that can lead to burnout. And you do have competitive markets that require distinct advantages that you can offer to the marketplace. Otherwise, you just blend in with everybody else who's offering that same service. Now, selling information. And I don't believe it's any secret that I believe selling information or selling advice is a better business model for everyone because anybody can do this. Now, the pros are it has extremely high margins because your inventory is information that's already in your head. So there's very low overhead and it's fixed. It's more about time than money. So if you are trying to start a business with virtually no upfront capital and virtually no ongoing costs, this is the type of business to start. It is scalable without significant additional costs. The costs to run businesses like this are very fixed, like I said before. And even as you grow, unlike other businesses, when you have a membership group and you have 10 people in it, it doesn't cost you any more to run that group with 10 people than it does to run a group with 100 people, which means you are scaling your income without additional costs. It also has the potential for recurring revenue through automated systems that I'm going to cover later. Now, there are some cons. In order to run an information business, first and foremost, you have to have some sort of expertise or some unique insights to help you stand out in a crowded market. You either have to have a unique way of doing something, or you have to have proven strategies and testimonies and data-driven analysis that says you know what you're doing. Now, it does require a substantial initial time investment because, like I do, and what we're talking about, you're packaging your information once, your advice, your knowledge, your expertise once, and then you are selling that to people on a monthly basis forever. But the initial time investment to develop your group, put content in your group, and help your group can be substantial. But it is a leveraged business model because once you do it, it's there to continue to generate revenue every single month, and that revenue will increase. Now, there is an additional thing to consider, and that is the need for updates and revisions to keep your content relevant. But this is like the third time that I have updated this module, and it is simply because things are changing at a rapid rate, but it takes like 15 minutes to update the information. So don't think that you're going to spend hours upon hours updating information, and you're never going to get it completely right, and we'll talk about that in later. Now, educated trends. Formal education, like colleges and trade schools, is down like 6% a year. Non-traditional education is up 20% a year. So you talk about shrinking versus growing markets. Education, non-traditional, is a growing market. So an advice business where you give a very specific result to a very specific group of people is a thriving business model. As we can see, formal education is declining, and you can look at this not so clear image, and you can see across the board, 3.5% of public universities changed between spring of 22 and spring of 23. That's the decline. And you can see two-year universities, it's down almost 8%. Total enrollment in all formal education sectors just from spring of 22 to spring of 23 was down 4%. So you can see that that 6% figure is very, very clear. Now, the future of e-learning is nothing but on the rise. If you can see here, this figure equates to about $850 billion. And the reason we get that is you look right here. Per a report, the global e-learning industry is expected to gather revenue of $840 billion a year. That's annual revenue by 2030. Whereas right now, it stands at about, some conservative estimates have it about 365. So how do you capitalize on this? If this is the best business for the future, how do you capitalize on it? Well, you align with consumer trends, right? Online education is meeting the growing demand for flexible, accessible, personalized learning experiences. It's got great scalability and low overhead. So that is an advantage of an online business, education business, rather. Again, low overhead compared to traditional institutions and scalability. You've got global reach here. If you use a platform like we're using here with School, you can reach the entire world. And you can do it for no cost. So you can reach a global audience. There are no limitations geographically to who you reach and how you teach them. This is opportunity. And one of my favorite quotes about opportunity is Thomas Edison. Opportunity is missed by most because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work. But it's opportunity that is overalls in work only in the beginning. Because once you reach a cruising altitude of 30,000 feet by packaging your information once, then you're only going to be helping people along the way implement and customize that information. Things that seem hard in the beginning have the biggest upside.